The temperature-wise, too warm, too cold? Too warm?
So how is the temperature? Is good? It's funny, where I am yesterday, I believe, got to about 38. 37, 38. It was pretty warm. Today it'll be cooler, but
Tim, where are you? Alex is asking.
oh, I'm in the desert in Southern California near Palm Springs. And most people know it as Palm Springs, even though it's just one of many towns now that are of similar size. Coachella Valley is the main area, and it's part of the Mojave Desert, which there's a place called Death Valley, right? La Valle de los Muertos, where it's the hottest place often in the world, where it'll be 55, degrees and stuff in the summer. But what's really nice here is we're protected by a mountain range, the San Jacinto Mountains, and it's just got a spectacular view. You just look at these amazing mountains, and it's high desert, pretty, not super high, but fairly high desert here. So why don't we go around the room and just say your name. Maybe starting, is that Alethea over there to the left? I can't, yeah, okay,
Yes,
good. Maybe starting with Alethea, just go around the room and then we'll go on to Zoom.
Did you hear that? She said, hi, she's Alethea. No?
I could hear noise, but I couldn't hear what she said, but I knew her name, so that was good. Thank you.
Alex.
Alex.
Well,
Stefan.
Stefan, okay, good.
Javier.
Javier.
Pablo.
Pablo, okay. We missed Juan there in the back, but.
Yeah, Juan. Gina.
Tina.
Gina.
Welcome.
Gina.
Oh, Gina. Gina, yeah, from Israel, right? Or from, yeah, welcome back.
Hi, I'm Judith.
Judith.
Judith, okay. Judith, are you new to Saladana?
Second time.
Second time.
Welcome back. And on Zoom, this is always more confusing because we're not sitting in a circle. How about we try to go by alphabetical order? That might bring some order to it.
Probably me.
Yeah.
Gore, G for core, I guess.
Hello, Gore. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
I think. How do you H-I-J? So that'd be Nacho Ignacio, I guess, is second.
Okay, so this is Nacho. Nice to meet all of you and to share the practice. And thanks for sharing the teachings, Gina.
Thank you, Nacho. Okay. And Javier. Got a hand from.
Hello, Javier.
Hello, Javier. Y Nitu.
Yeah. Joining first time from Madrid.
Oh, you're in Madrid. Okay, good.
I wanted to go, but then it was a bit late. So tomorrow I have to hit the office. So thought to take it. Perhaps next week I'll join you, or through the week someday.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Nice
Thank
to
you.
have you. And David joined a little bit later.
Sorry.
But all right. Okay, well, welcome all. Let's see, I often like to pin the room. Okay, so for those of you who are new and those of you who want to be reminded, so we will do a guided meditation of about 32 minutes. It's usually 30 minutes, and then we do a little extra practice at the end. And normally what we do is for the first 20 minutes or so, we do what you could call samatha or samadhi practice, a centering, a stabilizing practice, working either with the body or the breath. And then for the last 10 minutes, we'll often throw in a little exercise or another form of meditation. And as we're still talking about the Four Noble Truths and the second noble truth, that there is a cause of our suffering, of our dissatisfaction, what I thought I would offer, and you could do this throughout the meditation, you could do this throughout your life, really, but especially in those last 10 minutes, is to really kind of be aware of or sort of open to any struggle that you may be experiencing. So if you find yourself just kind of struggling with wanting to stay with the breath or not think or think about something else or move, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, but if you sense the struggle, what that is probably telling you is that you want things to be different than they are. Okay, which is the cause of our suffering, right? It's this craving, this wanting for things to be different, somehow, some way. And a really good way to know when we're doing that is if we're struggling, if we're fighting, if we're in conflict with something, including thinking. So if you're thinking and you're struggling with the fact that you're thinking, then it's pretty clear you don't want to be thinking. And so just try to let that desire, that wanting go and think if you have to think, right? Sometimes the brain needs to finish its thought. Okay, any questions or doubts? Okay, so Nito, I'm going to mute you just in case. I think I'll mute you guys in Saladana as well, or Carlos did. Thank you. Let's see, where's my clock? Oh, here it is. Here in Palm Springs, I don't have my bell, so we'll use the bell of the timer, which is actually, for a phone, a pretty good bell. Did someone just ring or something? Okay, so I'll wait a moment. I'll wait a moment. Maybe I'll even wait and talk a little bit. Yeah, if you're interested, another kind of word or another term that can be helpful for us. And this is a little more complicated, maybe a little more subtle. So don't worry about it if you don't want to do it. But the word is in English, it's a noun and a verb. Selfing. Selfing is the word. And what that means is that we are thinking about stuff that reinforces our sense of self, right? Which is 99% of the time, pretty much, right? I mean, mostly we just think about ourselves, right? It's very rare that we may not. And even if we're thinking about something like Ukraine, which theoretically doesn't have anything to do with us, we'll still be somehow involved even in that thought most of the time. So what we can do when we catch ourselves thinking about ourselves, we can just label it. Selfing. And then go back to whatever object you have. It's a little more subtle, so you could just say thinking. Usually we just notice we're thinking and we'll just label it out thinking. But you could also, if you notice there's a lot of self in there, you could say selfing as well. And sometimes labeling it just kind of seems to let it go. Okay, well, welcome to whoever just arrived, and we will now start our meditation. So this thing gives us there it was, starting bell. So hopefully you have found a comfortable posture. And when practicing samatha, shamatha, this stabilizing form of practice, it's very important that we are relaxed, comfortable, and alert. So you don't want to be so comfortable that you might fall asleep. But you don't want to be so uncomfortable that you're struggling with the discomfort. So we find a comfortable, alert, erect posture. And just that establishing of a posture can bring us into the present moment. Can unite the body and the mind and the heart. And we can literally just focus on our posture and achieve samatha. We can use the posture as an anchor, as a stabilizing object. And as the samatha, some translate it as stability, others as concentration, but it definitely has a stable characteristic to it. So in samatha practice, we are relaxed, we are alert, and we are stable. That is, the mind is stable. So sometimes we can just use the body to stabilize the mind. So if you hold your body still, gently, but just hold it still, and then pay attention to the body, the still, quiet, quieto body. This will help stabilize the mind. And when thoughts come, which of course they will again and again and again, we just notice them and gently, with intention, we come back to the body. paying attention to the body. You may notice sensations in the body, currents of energy, tickling, or you may notice points of contact. You just allow them all to be present within your awareness, within your consciousness. Try not to make up any stories about it. Just a bare knowing, a bare experiencing of the sensations in your body and the still, quiet posture. Now you may have noticed that the body is breathing. So if you haven't already, I invite you to connect to or start to pay attention to the movement of the body as a result of the breath, because of the breath. Allowing the posture, the other sensations in the body to recede to the background, el segundo plano, and the movement of the body as a result of the breath, or the sensations in the body as a result of the breath, is now our object. We pay attention to that. So we notice the breath all the way from the belly to the chest, to the nostrils, and from the nostrils to the chest, to the belly. And again, we are aware when we notice our thoughts, we're attentive, but then with intention, we direct or redirect our attention back to the breath, back to the movement, sensations in the body as a result of the breath. If you want to use some tools try to help you stay with the breath, you can count your exhalations. Maybe count up to 5, and if you reach 5, just start again. If you're experienced, you can count to 10. Or you can label. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And when there's thoughts, thinking, returning, breathing in. And now I invite you to narrow your focus, narrow your attention to the breath at the nostrils. And just try to experience the breath there. If this is difficult, if there's any struggle, you can always go back to the full body breathing. But just give it a try and see if you can relax as you observe the breath at the nostrils. Just observing it, not making up any stories about it. Counting it or labeling it if you want, but nothing more. And I'll be quiet for a while and we'll just practice with the breath at the nostrils or at the full body in the full body. So hopefully the mind is a little more centered, calm, stable. So just adding a sankara, really, a mental formation to be aware of. And that is if there's any struggle or resistance with how things are. And I invite you not to do anything about it, but just notice it. Like notice if your mind disapproves of thinking, for instance, or is struggling to not think, or is struggling with sleepiness and doesn't want to be sleepy or drowsy. I invite you to just be aware of that, whatever it is. And you can label it struggle, but nothing more, nada más. And then go back to your object, whether it's the full body breathing or the breathing at the nostrils. Just being slightly aware, one eye, you might say, on any sign of struggle, any sign of wanting things to be different than they are. So very, very good. Thank you for your practice. So to just wind down, let's return the attention to the full body, to the posture, much like we began. You might notice different sensations, possibly numb body parts, or even a little discomfort here and there. Just notice it, don't move. Reestablish that embodied presence. And then if you're willing, bring your attention to your heart space, to the chest. Connect to your heart there. And then mentally thanking yourself for your practice, for the goodness of your practice, the fact that you took time out of your day to connect with yourself, care for yourself in this way. Just showing up is something. And then taking this gratitude, this wish, desire for well-being, extending it out to the others in the room at Saladana or on Zoom, on YouTube, thanking them for their practice and supporting our practice. And then sending this energy, this goodwill, this gratitude out in all directions, touching all of life. And when you hear the sound of the bell, which will just be one bell, just notice what comes up in the mind, if anything. Thank you all very much. Welcome, Rosa. I see you're there, but I'm going to mute you. I think saw a couple sleepy heads there, maybe in the room. That's one of the tougher ones to kind of accept, right? Is sleepiness, drowsiness. Because oftentimes we just fall asleep. I mean, that's what happens. And a lot of times that's exactly what we need, right? Is some sleep. Especially when we go on retreat. For some people, the first 3 days are just trying to catch up on their sleep. So why don't, I don't know if, it's funny, I got so relaxed in that meditation, I don't even really feel like digging too deep into the teachings yet. So maybe we'll start with just a little encuesta, a little question here. Did anybody notice struggle? Was there any struggle in the mind? Okay, so we got a few hands raised. That's good. And for those of you who did not raise your hand, it's either not quite evident yet, or you're doing very well and you're not struggling. Probably more likely the first one, but a lot of times it is an acquired practice for sure to notice, because a lot of times it's very, very subtle. In fact, even, just the kind of wanting of something, like, I want it to be more pleasant, right? I want to feel a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable, or whatever. That can seem so benign. That's nothing. But that wanting tends to snowball a little bit, and then it turns into this craving, anhelo or whatever. I'm not sure. I always forget how to say it in Spanish, but kind of said, this thirst. And that will cause a little bit of contraction, tension, as we want it, right? And that would be what I would call struggle. At that point, you're struggling, right? You're not going with the flow of whatever your experience might be. And it's so beautiful about the teachings of the Buddha, which have just changed my life, and I love them and highly recommend them, is his whole deal, his whole gig, right? He would say this. He goes, I teach only one thing, and that's suffering and the end of suffering. Struggle or the end of struggle. Dukkha, or the Naroda, the cessation of dukkha. And in order for there to be a cessation of dukkha, he's talking about even the most subtle forms of struggle as well. Right? It's not just the gross, big, obvious ones. It just gets more and more subtle, which in and of itself, though, can cause a little bit of struggle, right? Because it's like never ending. It's like, oh my God, when is this going to stop? But it does. It just gets better. And a real obvious one, really is when we're practicing and we notice we're thinking. That, it's our relationship with our thinking mind that is probably going to be the biggest struggle you're having. You might have sleepiness. That'll be bigger than thoughts when you're sleepy. But over time, the sleepiness will kind of go away, but the thoughts are still going to be around. And when we can get to the point where we notice we're thinking and we just gently, effortlessly flow back to the breath, where there's no additional thought, there's no criticism, there's nothing. It's you're just flowing from the thinking, noticing of the thinking, to the breath. That's where we want to be, right? And then let's see, what would be the word I would want to use? Okay, kind. I'm going to use the word kind, amable, right? Just that kind transition will start to create like a new neural pathway, a new route, a new camino from thinking mind to the present moment, to the breath, to the body, whatever it is. It starts to create a new habit of kindness. And this habit of kindness will then start to also find its way into our regular lives. It's amazing. And while maybe once, we might have been very critical of ourselves, of our mind, of our behavior, mad that we got mad, mad that we were not kind, or critical that we're not kind, or whatever it might be, it just starts to go away, where we become much more accepting of how we've been, and even though this is counterintuitive, really, in our Western culture, especially, the behavior also starts to fall away. Much like the thinking mind will think less. I mean, I don't know if this is exactly how it works, but it sure seems like it kind of does. The more I don't want my mind to think, the more it's going to insist on thinking. It's like it's going to fight back. Oh, I have a good, let's see, can I see her? Okay. So I'm here at my mother's. My mother is in, it's not exactly a hospital, but she's in a rehabilitation place, right? She's been there now for 3 weeks, I guess, and who knows how long she'll be there. But anyway, so I'm in her house, and one of my tasks is to take care of her little dog, which her dog is like 5 kilos, 17 years old, deaf, mostly blind. But she still has this will. It's incredible to kind of do what she wants to do. So like I'll take her out for a walk, with a leash, and she wants to go this way, and I would rather go that way. And so we're in struggle a lot, right? She's struggling to go this other direction. And last night, as I was doing this, it very much reminded me of like the relationship with the mind. The mind wants to go in this direction. It wants to think about this. It wants to plan. It wants to worry. And it's very much like I kind of just want to stay over here when I walk the dog, and she wants to go into other people's yards and stuff, right? She wants to explore where she wants to explore. Now, of course, because she's only 5 kilos, I can just pick her up and, but we can't really do that with our mind. Our mind is like 500 kilos. I mean, it's too heavy to pick up. Or let's say 50. I don't know how much metaphorically it weighs. But you can imagine like a 50 kilo pit bull or whatever, if it wants to go that way, you guys are probably going to go that way. And the mind is kind of like that. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll stop there for a moment. Is there anybody who'd like to say anything or has a question? I've got a lot more that I can talk about, but I'd love to hear from you. Nothing? Okay, well, why don't we take a little walking meditation? Take one, do one, let's do one. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this second noble truth. But I also, if we have time, I'm going to introduce the wheel of dependent arising, dependent origination, which is one of the most classical or classic teachings of the Buddha. But just real quick, I'm going to just introduce it. Some of you, you're going to love it. Others of you are going to go, oh my gosh. But I think it's worth bringing up because it is very much about the second noble truth. But before we do that, maybe we can stretch our legs. We'll do a little walking meditation. For those of you who are new to walking meditation or want a little refresher, so we're going to walk. And in the room, I suggest you walk, what would that be? Is that vertically or horizontally? That's vertically, right? No, I don't know. Or is that the shorter distance? And the idea is we want to pay attention to our feet touching the ground. That sensation of contact with the floor is a really good object for our attention. Or you can also be more aware of just the actual movement of the body. And you could break it down, to lifting your foot, moving your foot forward, placing your foot, contact, if you really want to get down into the mechanics of it. or you can just simply be aware of the touching of the floor with your feet. And same thing when your mind wanders, which it will, maybe even more. Some people wander more when they're walking. Try to just, okay, thank you. I'm going to pay attention to my feet now, and just go back to your feet. And we'll do that for 6 minutes. Does that sound okay? I'll set this timer so it'll also make a little beep when it's time. I will walk as well. Hmm. Thank you all again for your practice. You know, that one, the walking meditation, can be so handy in our regular life, right? Anytime, you know, we're walking anywhere, to the metro, to the store, if we can just direct our attention to our feet, even for a few steps, it can help calm us down a little bit or even create a little happiness. Guaranteed. As long as we don't struggle, right? Don't struggle with, oh, why didn't I pay attention to my feet? Or no second guessing. Just as soon as you think about it, you know, just do it. You'll almost for sure you'll feel more relaxed after a few steps. Okay, so I'm going to be cognizant of the time, but take a little chance here, introduce a subject that there are courses on this subject. Not only are there just classes, but there are entire courses that you can take that go months long on this particular teaching of the Buddha. And I am by no means an expert at all, but I do love this teaching because I believe it is so true. I mean, it's not only, it's sometimes called like the wheel of dependent origination. It's also called the law of dependent origination. And this is a very distinctly Buddhist thing that you can sort of summarize or name as conditionality. Conditionality. That is, that nothing arises on its own accord. Everything arises as a result of conditions that precede it. We often will say causes and conditions, but conditions that will precede it. And this is kind of where Buddhism and Hinduism sort of diverted, in that in Hinduism there's this belief in like a stable, everlasting Atman soul. Call it a soul. It continues on. While in Buddhism, death arises because birth had arisen, right? There was birth, that's a cause, a condition, and then, you know, later there's death. There is no continuing fixed anything. Probably the only thing that is not impermanent, that is fixed in Buddhist philosophy, and not everybody agrees on this, but is nibbana, that state of non-suffering. So anyway, this is a big topic, you know, and there's 12 spokes, so even that could be 12 days. But we're just going to go through it real quick. It's kind of fun. I'm going to share it so you guys can see it. Let's see. ¿Dónde está? Here we go. So these are some notes. The notes are things that I've taken, and even that would take probably longer than we have. So I'm gonna just go with the names mostly. Okay, so the 12 links or spokes of the chain or law of dependent origination starts with, the first one is ignorance. And I love this as a first one, right? It's like ignorance causes all these others to arise. It starts with not seeing things clearly. Now these things, each one of these causes the next, or is a condition for the next to arise. In fact, here I'm going to go to this Buddhist quote first. The Buddha summarized dependent origination. When there is this, that is. With the arising of this, that arises. So when there's ignorance, that is, there is ignorance. With the arising of ignorance, then arises, and then you can go to the next one, mental formations, which we talked about a little bit there. I mentioned it with just struggle. When this is not, neither is that. With the cessation of this, that ceases. This is like a fundamental law, really, in Buddhism. When something arises, that will arise. That will cause the arising of that. And when it doesn't arise, the other doesn't arise as well. So, if ignorance arises, if we don't see things clearly, mental formations will arise. Mental formations, sankharas, include the whole range of proliferation in our mind, our views, our beliefs, our ideas, our opinions, right? And these things are impacted by all of our surroundings, how our family system was, how our schooling was, our friends, our culture, the country we live in. I mean, just everything you can imagine are going to impact our views, beliefs, etc. Now, this is another area where I think Hinduism and Buddhism kind of go different ways, or at least Advaita Vedanta, which is a form of Hinduism. So these sankharas, when they arise as consciousness. Now, consciousness in a Buddhist context, I think, is very interesting. It says here, it's affected by causes and conditions. So this is a quote by a German nun by the name of Ines Nin. She was very prominent some maybe 30 years ago and before. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. This is such good advice. It's so right on, right? We can't even be sure that how we're perceiving things is how they really are. You know, this is, you can almost say this is arrogance, you know, and we see this a lot in the political realm, or, yeah, let's call it the political realm, where people are just so sure they know, you know. Oh, I know exactly what that person was thinking. How in the heck do we know? We don't know. So it's very dangerous. And in fact, I think Martin Allward, who wrote the book that I quoted from a few weeks ago, I think he's talking about writing a new book called Know Nothing. Know, be aware, you know, saber, nothing, nada. That know nothing mind is the antidote to this. Which, by the way, this wheel, the end of this wheel is suffering, dukkha. Okay, that's the end. So this is not a great wheel, but we can get off it at any time, any spoke, including with ignorance. Opposite of that, antidote is ignorance is wisdom. So you go from consciousness, and then you go to rupa, you go to name and form. This is how the mind works. It names it, whether we're even aware of it or not. It's just constantly giving labels to these things. So here, I like this sentence right here. Our mental and physical experience is shaped by the consciousness, the preceding spoke, which is presupposed by our habits, and it affects how we feel things, perceive things. You know, for the most basic, like sitting in a posture where discomfort might arise, very often does, and depending on our belief system and how we've been conditioned, we may immediately try to move and find a different posture. Or we may not. And we may stay in this posture to the point where we even can hurt ourselves, and everything in between. This is just a very basic example. But so you have name and form, the body, and it is influenced by our consciousness, by our experience, by our culture, and it may determine whether we move a lot, whether we don't move even to the point where, then we've injured ourselves, and everything in between. The senses. In Buddhism, we have 6 because they consider the sense door of the mind also to be a sense or a sense base. So here again, in the posture is a good example. In Buddhism, we're not even going to sense things exactly as they are due to the preceding spokes of this wheel of dependent origination. A little bit of discomfort when we're sitting might be perceived as a terrible thing that must be ended right now. Or it might be received as, oh, my practice must be good because I'm feeling a little bit of pain. Or, whatever it is. I have one in my sitting, my morning sit. I usually sit an hour, maybe an hour and a minute, hour and 2 minutes, hour and 4 minutes, or whatever. But almost for sure, at the 50-minute mark, I will start to feel some physical discomfort. And so just how I perceive that could be, some days it's, oh, well, I'm at the 50-minute mark. That means I only have 10 minutes to go, as an example, right? So all these things can be influenced. Okay, this is a very simple one. The 6th one is just contact. But this is so fundamental. And there's even meditation practices that really focus on contact. When the sense door, the sense base makes contact with the name and form. So name and form, number 4, makes contact with the sense. And then this one we've talked about, the 7th one, it creates a feeling tone. Now this was so insightful of Buddhism. Neuroscientists now know that the mind automatically, at a speed that we can't even imagine, decides that it likes this or it doesn't, that it's pleasant or that it isn't, that it's something I want more of or not. And the Buddha and the practitioners of his time had slowed things down enough where they were able to see how the mind, as soon as it makes contact with something, it goes through the senses, it makes contact, it decides, is this what I want or not? And guess what? If we like it, the next one arises. Craving, I want it, I want more. If that feeling tone is pleasant, and really it has more to do with the feeling tone than it has to do with the thing itself. Let's say I'm having a nice, flow, very little thought, body is starting to feel a little pity, that joy or happiness. Oh, and then the mind wants more of that. Guaranteed it will. How can I continue this? And guess what? This is so brilliant, right? Once we start to crave that, then we start to cling to it. This one I do know in Spanish, apego, right? Apagar. We hold on. God, I want that all the time. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more subtle, or not subtle, maybe not the right word, but a little more Buddhist, a little more abstract. But so with clinging, then becomes becoming, or what I had called selfing. This kind of stuff, it's like, okay, I think I can grab this real quick. We're almost out of time. From Joseph Goldstein. Yeah. I mentioned this last week, but it's worth mentioning again. It goes with to I want, I need, I must have. So something will arise and we'll like want it to start. It's just kind of a wanting, but then our mind in this becoming, this selfing, starts to reinforce it with this sense of self to become I need it to I must have it. I mean, there's just no question. This is all due to the sense of self, which, as I mentioned last week, I love this perspective that the self is really just for survival purposes, right? If we didn't have a sense of self, well, we may not survive as a species. So we have this sense of self, but it's really not real. It just serves a purpose, survival. Okay, becoming, and then you get birth, which this could be either rebirth, which in the Buddha's day, they talk about rebirth, and it can also just be birth of each moment. Another moment, we awaken again. I like this also, ownership. Gosh, what a way to suffer. I own this, it's mine. Or becoming, I become into someone who does good or bad. Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. I become into someone. This leads us to the final wheel, final spoke, dukkha, suffering. So wow, I can't believe I went through, that's probably, most of you are asleep. If you weren't sleepy before, you might be sleepy now. It's a lot of words, but what a fun and just interesting way of looking. Because it's essentially that's what it is, right? It's a way of looking. And you can summarize it real quick, more pithily in the first wheel, the first spoke is ignorance, and that leads to suffering. And you got all those different spokes, which the Buddha was able to see through his practice, that really splices it, cuts it, defines it, examines it, boom, 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 boom. And we can get off this wheel at any time. This is important to know. We can at any point decide, okay, I'm going to let go of that. I notice the clinging, I notice the craving, I notice the Vedana. The Vedana, this is why it's the second foundation of mindfulness. It's so important because we can notice that it's pleasant, and that is a warning sign. Okay, watch out. You may want to crave next. Or even the opposite. It's unpleasant, so we want to push it away, which is just another way of craving something else, right? The opposite. Okay, that was a lot of words. I'm going to stop. And I know I probably talked too fast, maybe too, and there's so many words, but let's see if there's any questions. Anybody? And I wonder, Carlos, maybe next time, I don't know if there's a placard. There may be a placard there on Dependent Origination. I can't remember if there is, but
I'll check for next time.
yeah, next time. Or maybe we'll do like a series on it or something. But any preguntas, questions, or anybody want to offer any insights that they had, or kind of darse cuentas of any of those wheels or spokes? I have a question for Juan. Juan, I'm assuming in the Zen tradition they also teach dependent origination. Is that true?
Sí, en el Zen se enseña también sobre, no sé cómo se traduce, origen dependiente.
In a second level, not in the first level.
Did you hear that, Jim?
I heard, no, actually no.
As a second track, second level, not on the first, not in the beginning, not in the first level.
Yeah. Thank you, Juan. And this isn't first level teaching, right? This is pretty advanced stuff, for sure. Yeah, in fact, I probably shouldn't even be trying to teach it because it's very nuanced. And the main thing that I take away from it that helps me is this conditionality, this idea that nothing arises on its own. It all arises due to something that precedes it. And this allows for, at least for me, or creates the space for compassion, for kindness. So for instance, just in terms of our thinking patterns, the sankharas, right? The way we believe, the way we see the world, the way we react, these are as a result of conditions that preceded it that could go back many generations, could go back 1,000 years in our family system or whatever, right? And so it's very hard to be mad at ourselves for having these thoughts. And when we start to disidentify with our thoughts and we start to just allow them to arise without taking them personally, right there, it's a huge step towards freedom. I mean, if I were to personalize every thought I'd have, I would go volunteer to imprison myself in the jail. I'd just be like, okay, just arrest me. These thoughts, I deserve to be incarcerated. Thankfully, they're much less now, but some of my thoughts are just horrible. But I've learned to not take them too seriously. It's like, oh, wow, where did that come from? Okay, thank you. Oof, I've run us over on time. Okay, stop. Sorry about that. I'm going to take you a couple minutes late because we're going to finish with the antidote to crazy thinking. And that is a little short loving kindness, goodwill meditation called metta, M-E-T-T-A, metta. And I feel bad that I went over. The sun is the light blinded me from the clock. For those of you who are new to this practice, we're going to say some phrases. I'm going to say them, and then you can say them mentally, similar to the very end of the first meditation. And we'll do 4 phrases each for 4 different groups, starting with I. Starting with yourself, where we're going to offer ourselves some goodwill, some loving kindness, metta. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. And may I live with ease. Ease, facilidad. Quizá, no sé. Okay, second group. Why don't we use again the people of Ukraine? May they be happy. May they be safe. May they be well. And may they live with ease. And now we will do what's often referred to as the difficult person, the difficult being. So this could be somebody who maybe said or didn't say something that hurt your feelings, somebody you feel a little resentment towards. I tell you, this one really works for resentments. If you have a resentment towards somebody, just imagine someone like that. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And then finally, all beings in all directions without exceptions. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, in the tradition of renunciation, of letting go, of generosity, we offer up the fruit, the benefit, the merit of our practice today, the teachings, our Buddha nature, and our Sangha, our community. Offer these up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war, violence, discrimination, racism, and coronavirus. And may all beings find their wheel, find their path, find their steps towards the end of suffering. May all beings be free. Okay, well, thank you all for staying. We're just a couple minutes. I do have a couple announcements, which hopefully I can do quickly. First, I'll do Dana. And as you know, at Saladana, or most of you know, we are experimenting with the economy of generosity instead of capitalism, I guess. And this is the tradition that goes back more than 2,600 years, in Buddhism especially, where the teachings are offered freely, and the practitioners can also practice generosity. And so there's never any charge for anything at Saladana, fixed charge. And you also can practice generosity either by making a financial donation, of which there is a donation box in the entrada there where you can leave something, or you can also send via a transferencia or BISM. And this helps us pay the bills and so forth. And also helps us with my next announcement real quick, but you can also help us by, just cleaning up. And if you see something in Saladana that looks kind of out of place, or maybe somebody left behind a plastic water bottle or whatever, love it if we just keep it nice and clean. And it's kind of like it's everybody's home, not any one person. And then my second announcement is regarding the retreat that will be coming up in May, where Bhante Sanata Vihari, a rising young star, I call him, in the Spanish-speaking Buddhist world. He's coming from Los Angeles, California. He is going to bless us with his presence for a week, and we're going to have a 5-day retreat in Galapagar. And then also that Saturday will be in Saladana. And I highly encourage you guys to figure it out. I mean, if you have a job, and I know many of you do, figure it out. I think it's going to be vale la pena to go and be with a real monk. This guy is the real deal, the real deal. and he's in the same lineage of Bhikkhu Analayo, Bhikkhu Bodhi. I mean, some of the more important scholars of our time. And there should be flyers in the sala and then also on our website, saladana.retiros.org/retiros will get you there. And if you really want to go, but finances are a little bit of a problem, we do have a scholarship fund, which, by the way, Alex, can you raise your hand? Alex is one of the board members of the junta. So I'm glad he was able to come today. And thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think that's it. I want to thank Carlos, as always, and Alicia for your assistance. Without you, I'm not sure how we would do it. Very much appreciate it. Is there any other announcements? Nacho, would you like to say something? Or Nacho, by the way, is our historic, in case you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the message that I sent you about, I don't know if you remember Alfredo Abad, which is head of the Protestants in Spain, the one which offered us his church for Saladana before Saladana was born. And I was speaking with him, and they're having huge problems getting food for families who need them, families from refugees. Some of the refugees are from Ukraine. And I just was wondering if by any chance maybe we could organize like a place in Saladana for people to leave food so that we can give it to them or something like that. If this is something that should be handled with the board, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say first let's start with the junta, with the board. But yeah, thank you, Nacho. We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Carlos, you have anything you want to share? Sometimes people go out for vegetarian dinner afterwards, and obviously those of you in Saladana would be able to. Us remote, less likely. But anyways, unfortunately, I'm still here for a few more weeks. I don't know how. I'm helping my mother transition to a permanent assisted living place. And once that's all stabilized, then I will head on back. But meanwhile, I'm here. And yeah, I'm doing the right thing, I believe, by being here. But I miss you guys and wish I was there. Anyways, maybe next week I hope to see you.
Thank you, Jim. We miss you too.
Yeah.
One question I have.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'll stay on for a while if you have any questions. Go ahead, Neetu.
The thing is, you mentioned next week the yogi is coming. So would we have to put an RSVP, or how do I intimate to be part of that on the Saturday?
Oh, so that's not next week. That's actually in May.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. No, you got plenty of time to organize for the whole week. I would recommend you go for the whole week in Galapagar, and then yeah.
I just
Saturday.
I am working here, so it will be a little tough for me to take off for a week.
Yeah, I understand. For the Saturday event, those who go on the retreat will have the priority in terms of attending, but we should be able, we'll have to talk, the junta will have to talk about the aforo. Right now it's 35, probably for that Saturday, we'll make an exception and bump it up to 50 or, something like that. When he was here 2 years ago, I think we had, 80 people in there. But maybe we won't go that much. Anyways, okay. Well, good to see you all.
Thank you, Jim.
Gracias por todo y hasta luego y que tengáis un buen semana.
Bye, take care.
Take care. Bye.